Hello and welcome to Ask GMBN Tech. This is the show where we get to answer your questions. So if you have a question, get in the comments below, hashtag Ask GMBN Tech, and then maybe your question can be featured. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content and hit that notification bell. Thank you very much and let's get into it. So first question on the hit list this week is from Plodocus. I think I got that in one. Banging. Anyhow, he says, Ask GMBN Tech, my old giant 2010 hardtail has now been upstaged by my new white full-size bike for some serious trail riding. So it's now got given a pannier rack and stuff for a second lease of life as a bike packing and adventure bike. I'm inspired to fit dynamo lights to it. Oddly enough, my electric cruiser pub and shopping bike never has to charge the lights or worry about batteries, and he really likes it because it's ridiculously handy. But in all the pics I've seen, the dynamo lights seem to have fixed front forks. Are there any tips or contraptions for fitting, that dynamo hub wiring to a 120mm suspension fork? Well, I think there are two ways you could go about this. The first one would be on your disc brake hubs, the wire is probably almost always going to come off the drive side, so opposite to the disc brake. So you could follow it up the back of the leg, maybe across the crown, and then you could, if you wanted to, perhaps heat shrink it up to the top. As long as it's fixed securely either end and it isn't being pulled apart by the suspension, much like a front brake really, it will be absolutely fine. What I would probably be inclined to do is get one of those dynamo lights that mounts to the crown of your fork and see if there's a way you could bodge it onto that crown nice and securely. I think you could find a way. And then it doesn't have to, it's a workaround, so it doesn't have to go across with that stroke of the fork, and the variance in cable length wouldn't be required. So that's what I'd do. If you're feeling really fancy, maybe you could get a soldering iron, some elbow grease, a strong cup of tea, and you get that kind of coiled cable that's got some spring in it. Maybe you can make something like that work. But simple option, I'd just bodge it onto the crown of the fork. Next question from Let's Play PSVR. And they say, advice for stopping the bike and components starting to rust. I live in a coastal area, so salt is always in the air, etc. I clean, dry and lube my bike, yet this doesn't stop the rusting. The bike is always stored in the garage. Notice my chain, cassette and even my rotor has some rust. This sounds like an absolute nightmare. I have had a friend that had a similar issue and found some success with a dehumidifier of all things, but I don't think he was by the sea. Honestly, I did some Googling. People say that you can cover stuff up, but it just sounds like it's really, really difficult. All the normal stuff I'd suggest, like, washing your bike, lubing it up, using a displacer or some kind of protection fluid. It sounds like you're already doing. And, with that in mind, I don't know how you're meant to stop your, you can't just put a load of protection silicone on your disc brakes, for instance. So it does sound like a real pickle. Maybe out the garage and inside of the house with a dehumidifier would do it. Difficult one. I'm going to throw out the comments if you think you know the answer. Some of you playing the numbers game must live by the coast. How do you get on? What do you do? And maybe we can help out Let's Play PSVR. Now time for a question from Jackson. And he says, my brakes aren't working very well. And I saw Seth's Bikes Hacks video on this. And I saw he used alcohol prep pads and I tried and it didn't really help. Would you guys recommend anything? Well, it's always nice to know we're second on your list, but don't worry about that. Moving swiftly on. I'd try and reset everything to 0. Personally, this is just me. I don't want to introduce anything to my brake pads. Even brake cleaner can counterintuitively contaminate your brake pads. So assuming your brake pads aren't contaminated, this is what I would do. I would run them under a bit of water and just rub them together. This is going to remove any glazing. I would then get some dry and clean, I repeat, clean towel, look at it, make sure it's clean, and just wipe the excess off. Make sure that's all good. like I said, assuming they're not contaminated, you'll be able to tell if they're contaminated or not. But if it's never ending and they never, ever stop giving up black sludge, bin them, they're done. Don't worry about it. Just move on. You can't win them all. Then I would go to my disc itself and I would take the disc off the bike. I would clean it thoroughly with a brake cleaner or isopropyl alcohol. And then I would get some sandpaper and don't follow the braking track. Disrupt the braking track. What can happen is your pads can glaze, which is where they get so hot the top surface melts, and then that causes them to vibrate on the rotor. The rotor then also gets very hot, and then it begins to be quite smooth in all the wrong ways. And you want to disrupt those braking tracks and make it start from afresh. So once you've scuffed that up, clean it up with some brake cleaner. So you've got two clean interfaces, reinstall everything, and then go bed it in properly. Get up to a nice speed and do steady but controlled braking, because what you're going to try and do is wear those faces of those brake pads so they're exactly parallel to the thing they're braking upon. What that means is, imagine if your rotor's like this all the time and both pads are sat like there. The braking's going to be done here and here, but the other parts can be far away. So you need to let that pad wear parallel. Once you've done that, if it still doesn't work, go back to Seth's bike hacks and then come back to me. Now a question from Sim, and they say, "Hi, can you explain what a low bottom bracket entails? I thought it was just having the BB lower than the axle height if you drew a line between the front and rear axle. My 29 has a minus 15mm bottom bracket height, but I have been told this isn't considered a low BB, so I'm confused." Well, yeah, you touched upon it there. So with bottom brackets, there are kind of two different measurements. There's BB drop, which is that minus 15mm figure you're quoting, and there is, some people measure it from the ground. So the two are not to be confused because they are wildly different numbers. With that minus 15, that isn't particularly low. However, I can't, take away and get a full idea of the bike from just that number. For instance, a cross-country hardtail would have often a lower bottom bracket than a downhill bike, which is completely counterintuitive. But the downhill bike is going to go so deep into its travel, it will be lower under compression. So a bottom bracket number, is it low, is it high? Well, actually, it depends on a lot of things, not least the kinematics and axle path of your bike. Some axles go straight up, some go, rearward. And that means that it's going to have a different effect on what it does to your bottom bracket height. For your trail bikes, between enduro bikes, somewhere between the minus 25 to minus 35 is kind of pretty common. But like I said, there are so many, and that's on the 29, but there are so many variances that I can't say, oh, that's low or that's high, because it's one part of a bigger picture. Next, a question from CW, and they say, "Hi guys, do you think it is worth buying a 2019 bike now, or would it be better waiting a couple of months to upgrade to a 2020 model? Bear in mind, I'm in South Africa, and usually we have to wait longer for bikes to arrive here." Well, it really depends on the model. Often cycles go round in 3 or 4 years at a time. And so you might be getting the 2020 model, might be the exact same bike with a lick of paint, probably isn't worth waiting 6 months for. If it's a complete overhaul, then suddenly it might look like a far better option. There are other things to bear in mind. Sometimes you can get the outgoing season's bike a lot cheaper. So I'd say if you can get a 2019 bike a lot cheaper because of its season, because it's the outgoing season, that's the same as the 2020 bike, and you can have it now, well, that sounds like a no-brainer to me. I'd get the 2019 bike. If I can't get a discount on a 2019 bike, the 2020 bike is a massive overhaul and isn't that far off, well, I'd probably consider the 2020 one. When you get the new revitalized model, it's going to hold its resale value a lot better. So if you're spending that same amount of money, you're not getting a discount, I'd probably wait. But it really does depend on model to model. So without knowing further details, I can't advise too much, but I'm sure you can work it out. Hopefully, I've given you a bit of an explanation there, and yeah, you'll go figure. Last question this week is from Lachlan, and they say, I'm currently running a smooth rolling tyre on the rear and have a big, heavy front tyre with large tread, although I'm going to get new tyres soon. Should I stick with the smooth rollout back or switch it around? Your opinion would be appreciated. Personally, what works for me is when I get a new tyre, I put it on the front, and then I put the big tyre on the back. You know, I never really got on board to the fast rolling. I don't mind something like I run a Trail King on the back, which is, is not the most aggressive tyre, but it's certainly not a slick either. And now we're going into winter, I'm probably going to run a Baron front and back and be very happy. So yeah, I'd probably just put the front one on the back and put a new one on the front. Some people really, really do like those slick tyres, those fast rolling tyres, especially in summer. I don't know where you're from, you might be from the Southern Hemisphere, but it might be worth taking that fast rolling tyre off, putting it in storage for a couple of months and bringing out back when the trails get a bit drier. When I used to ride, I used to really be worried about rolling resistance, and it used to be like, well, I don't want to get dropped from the climbs and I don't want this to happen, and it was kind of like the big boogeyman. Now I just don't care. I just want to enjoy my bike on the descending, and for me personally, that means having as much grip as I can, just to be able to just really relax and really enjoy my riding. So yeah, I don't care about rolling resistance. Some people do, but maybe if you are going into winter, have two big old tyres and you'll be a lot happier for it. So that is another episode of Ask GMBN Tech all wrapped up. Thank you very much for watching. If you're at home and you have a question, please get in the comments below, hashtag Ask GMBN Tech, and hopefully we can answer it on the show. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell, as it really helps support us here at the channel. If you want to stay with us and you're thinking, Henry, you didn't talk nearly long enough about tyres. Well, we've got that covered, because I wouldn't stop yammering on my bike check. Click down there for that one on my Canyons Drive. And if you want to keep with the bike checks, Doddy did a super cool look at the old and original nuke-proof reactor. Click down there for that one. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.